Welcome to the Banter at the Counter podcast here at Phone Savers in Killarney. I'm John Lynch and I'll be bringing you fun and insights from everyday customers, inspiration from entrepreneurs and from my own life journey. So come on in and join me as I deep dive into the secrets of life and success. Seems to me, Aidan, like you see potential in people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm getting, like. I mean, I've known you now a bit, and it seems that's what you do.
So you and I know each other 6 years. First of all, as me walking to you as the customer, you're the kind of guy who does active listening. So when you ask a question to a customer, you might be busy here fixing something, but you also have a great ability to listen to the story behind the customer. So every customer comes into you has a story, and within that interaction you realise that there's a person behind the customer, and you get to know them. And that's why, look, through the last 4 or 5 years you've built up a very good trade in this whole environment, but you have a repeat customer base, which is, I find, phenomenal, and it's a credit to you, you know. Thanks,
Aidan. I mean, I've had some amazing stories. I mean, some of them virtually in tears behind the counter, and other times, like, people inspire me. I mean, you being an inspiration now, like, what I know is that you've had businesses, right? You've gone from, I didn't want to drill down into your story too much because it would kind of dilute the podcast, you know. You had businesses, a string of shops, a chain of shops, am I right? And I mean, why did you change route? A drastic change, like.
I had the pleasure of having a great apprenticeship with Quills. I worked for them for 12 years. The great thing about the lads, especially Padraig Senior and Christy, who has the shop in Carsavine, but the lads always had this great work ethic. And
they're hard workers, yeah.
And the realisation here is that if you put the effort in, you're going to get the reward. And fair due to them, they did. So in 1999, at that stage, I would have been married 4 or 5 years, and my apprenticeship was done. And to be fair to the lads, I told them on April 99 that I was going to change scenery and go back to West Cork, to where I came from, and set up a shop below, and to which I did. On the 21st of June 1999, I started my own project.
1999?
Yeah. And
where did you start? In Kenmare, was it?
No, I started in Bantry. Yeah, Bantry, population 3,500.
But you're a Kenmare man, aren't you?
Originally, I'm from... here's the funny thing. Originally, I'm from outside Bantry, a little village called Doris, on the way... we're the last house in the parish of Doris, on the way to the Mizzen Head. I walked the road to Kenmare in 1987, and I've never looked back. The lads in West Cork call me a Kerryman. The guys in Kerry call me the other guy. And I'm somewhere in between. But look,
so that's what happened.
Yeah, the great thing about it is, look, I share a common thread with both communities, West Cork and South Kerry. I don't see any difference between the attitude, the way they deliver stories, even the way the community live. Look, you can always pick up the phone to any from West Cork and Kerry, you'll get a story out of them.
Cork's a great county. Yeah,
well, West Cork is a great county.
Okay, we won't give it too much.
Right, let's lose the politics. So you set up the shop. And then within 2 years, it was going very, very well. As a person who was always taught by my own dad that the moss should never grow under your feet, we ended up with 5 shops within 3 years. So I had 3 video and phone shops, and we had 2 clothes shops. Skibbereen Bantry for the 2 clothes shops, and then the man with Skibbereen and Bantry for the video and phone shops. Look, as a side note, I've always had an idea that youth and young people should be given a chance, and most of the people that worked with me would have been aged between 17 and 24, so they were either coming into me at transition year, looking for a week's job just to cover their own job descriptions for the school.
Like a summer holiday job.
Yeah, not even that. You know, the teachers had come down, go down there to Aidan Murnane there and go in and work with him for a week, and all of a sudden the person ended up working with me for 5 years, and you were going, all right, you're still working with me.
Well, that's a good reflection, like.
It is, yeah.
You know?
And it was a great reflection of the teachers in the school as well. They allowed... they picked the right people who were interested in developing their own skill sets. So look, it ended up, I was very lucky that way. Even in Skibbereen, even in Dunmanway, the people that worked with me were wonderful, and they were people who were not afraid to take chances or pick up the phone and say, listen, I think we need to do X, Y and Z. Within the businesses then. We did stuff that really worked and we did stuff that didn't work. And look, John, as you know yourself, before I sold the video and phone shops in 2006, we were within 6 months of inventing this whole platform, which later became Netflix. Yeah,
Jesus.
I explained that to you.
I was thinking at the time that was a massive thing. That was a huge, like, it was a massive change, sudden change, in fairness.
It was, yeah. Look, I had a great guy working for me, Sean O'Mahony. He was an electronics student in CIT in Cork, and every year Meitheal Martin, is the Minister for Industry, Commerce, Trade and Employment, used to come down and give him a parchment for saying you're the best student in the school for the year and in the country. So he worked on that particular project and brought it to its finality. Now, the pity here was that the person who purchased that particular that business off me decided that there wouldn't be a future in this online platform. That the idea you go out in the morning, pick a film, upload it onto your TV and come home in the evening and watch a film was totally alien to the DVD and VHS market.
It couldn't happen. It couldn't be possible, could it?
And here we are today. You just go online, you have 5,000 films in the Netflix platform. And
then you have YouTube and you're spoiled.
Now we're, like I said, it's Amazon Prime or it's the next format, or even RT now have got their own online platform, and that's within our lifetime. And there's a whole generation of people age 15 and under don't know any other platform.
I mean, if you look at the curve of technology, I mean, if you took a snapshot of even 2,000 years, right, and you took a graph, the improvement in society, like how society's improved through technology and stuff, it shoots through the roof. It just spikes. In the last 100 years, where we've progressed is amazing.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I think we have to recognise that too, that it's kind of like, that's a bit of a strain on people too, like maybe, but it's just a sudden injection of this technology.
My father always said as a joke back in the 80s, the day that you can put your hand into the television and pick out the Mars bar and the can of Coke out of the ad is the day when you realise that we've come instant.
He might be too far wrong,
he's not.
I mean, you think that's crazy, again, like,
but
you know,
we're within. I think it's in somewhere in the States, 35 minutes away from achieving that whole reality. If you've seen advertisement in the television estates, you can phone Amazon and with
deliver it.
A drone, the can of Coke and Mars will arrive in your door by drone. Right,
or a pint.
Which once you put it up on some, and once you pay for it on whatever the latest monetary platform is at the moment, I'm not up to speed with it.
Well, Amazon have done trials on this,
on
the drone thing. Look, the thing about the shops and stuff, you got into it. I'm getting the feeling that somewhere along the line, someone inspired you somehow, even when you were younger or something. I mean, sometimes we have these moments or these people that kind of come into our lives. Like your father, you mentioned your father, a lot there now.
Yeah, so dad was always a great influence to me. The background to this story was mum and dad were always very positive people, and within our own family, we were told that you had to put the 2 feet in the ground every morning to achieve what you want to achieve in life.
Do you have to work hard?
It's not even a work ethic. It's look, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to live your life right. It wasn't from a religious point of view, but it was from you treat
good moral standing.
And that's it. That was it. Look, unfortunately, Mom in 79 got sick and had left us at 81 on the 1st of August 1981, and then the whole idea of community kicked into me. We had no mom in the house, and then we would, in our own townland, there would be 15 houses in the neighbourhood, but at least 7 of the families around us would have taken an active role in our rearing for the next 5 or 6 years.
Really? So people helped out with the family, like?
Not alone did they help out.
Jesus.
We're looking at the idea that the dinner that one family would have would be the same as the dinner that would be put on our table by somebody who wasn't attached to us.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It was. And look, the idea, and I love this story, during the summertime I might go to my cousins who were only 5 miles over the road for a month to learn how to ride a horse or cutting turf or saving hay. They were only 5 miles over the road, but the idea of getting us out of the environment that we were in, where negativity wasn't allowed grow in our own minds, that we're always kept busy.
Was that a conscious thing people were aware of in the family, or was it just something that you picked up yourself? I mean, was there things, were you told to people?
I don't think there was a conscious program where, we got to make
sure. Like there is now, there's these programs of be positive and
this was the way it is. Like, keep that fella busy, otherwise he'll want to be thinking too much.
So it's like an inherent trait in the family kind of thing.
Yeah, an inherent trait in the neighbourhood.
Wow. Okay. And where in Kinmare, right?
No, this was back
in
Doris.
Back in
West Cork. So, like, look, if you look at the West Cork situation, they're kind of detached from the rest of the country. There was one road in, one road out.
Well, so Cork people are like that.
But like the fellas, everything south of the viaduct. If anybody knows what the viaduct is in Cork, it's the big bridge that brought guys from West Cork to Cork City. But everything south of that.
I'm being disingenuous to them now. I think
it's a different culture. Look, like I keep saying, our ideology is very similar to the ideology of South Kerry, and that kind of, we're all great to tell a story and tell our own story, you know, and share stories. But the important thing for me at the time was that this was a whole community, not just in our own townland, but a community that were aware of who we were, what happened, and were willing to give a hand and never ask for anything in return.
I'm just getting the idea that years ago, wasn't that sort of something that they did often?
Yeah, the Meitheal system. There was actually a system back long ago called the Meitheal system.
Was there, yeah?
So where if you're an inherent farmer, that all the rest of your neighbours would come together to do the thrashing. They'd come together to cut the hay. They'd come together to drive the cattle or sheep up into the commonage in the mountains and thing at the start of the year in the summer. So you'd spend 5 or 6 days or 3 weeks cutting everybody's hay.
It's like we used to go to the bog and do the hay.
Correct, that kind of stuff. So like, you weren't cutting the turf for yourself, you're cutting for a whole community, and you were spent 2 weeks up there with 10 or 12 other people.
Geez, that wouldn't be done now, would it?
It isn't because the perception is that we're too busy. It's not far away. I've looked at neighbourhoods and different, even streets in Kerry or in West Cork. That whole idea of community still alive and still very much alive. I would say that during the first lockdown, it became very evident that society hadn't forgotten where it came from, especially in this country. That
interesting point. I get
that
you.
That somebody aged over 65 who had an inherent fear that they were going to die because of this flu type situation that was coming from China, or the China virus or the China flu.
And that's scary to someone that's kind of older, you know what I mean, in fairness.
And who were vulnerable. But you turn around after 3 or 4 days of this euphoric idea that if you touch somebody, spoke to somebody, they were going to drop dead, the type of stuff you've seen in zombie movies, and a whole fear factor had been sent out to everybody. Oh, look, if you cough in a shop, everybody in the shop are going to die. When you got rid of all that kind of initial fear and spoke to people and let people know that you were there if they wanted the bottle of milk or the loaf of bread, it could be delivered to their door. And at that point then we started a whole community in this country started to recover and to allow people back into their lives. And here's the beauty of it. As the year went on, I noticed that any person that was seen to do right got it back in return. You know,
it's like pay it forward. Kind of idea.
People that never looked for recognition received it in other ways. The idea that one person, look, I remember a funny but true story.
Go on, we like funny true stories.
That my uncle Francey in Skull, bachelor of mine, age 74, decided that he wanted to heat up the house. It's an old agricultural house, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms upstairs, sitting room, parlour, and back and front hallway. And he decided he wanted to put the heater upstairs in his room. And unfortunately, while he was putting the cable up over the door, he fell off the chair and wedged his finger against the door. And over the period of 5 weeks, he never told me, when I was going down doing the farming for him during the lockdown, that he had not alone broken the finger, but gangrene had set in.
Jesus.
So one day I walked into the parlour and I said, Francey, Jez, where's that bottle of Paddy? I've drank it. I'm going, frick me, that's over 2 nights. Is there an issue coming down the night? I said, you're drinking kind of a lot, he said. And then he said, oh, the pain is severe. And he showed me the finger and it was gone black from the second digit right hand down as far as the bone. So I went, God, right, this is a problem. I think we need to bring you to the doctor. I'm not going down there. I said, well, okay, can I bring up the district nurse? No. So, what are we going to do? Are we going to, drink ourselves to death or gangrene?
Get a bottle there.
Or sepsis. We'll go down to the shop there, get me another bottle of Paddy and we'll deal with it afterwards. So, look, I have a sister, Rosemary, who's kind of the I don't want to use the word the
nurse.
No, she's a person everybody listens to. So Francey listened to what she had to say, and we brought him down to the doctor 3 days later. Oh, that's very seriously, Mr. Daly. You need to get you need to go to hospital for a year to get septicemia out. Not a hope in hell he wouldn't go. So there's a fantastic guy, Colin Murray, who lives in Kilcummin there, who's the head of administration above in the hospital in the South Infirmary. And I know him through soccer. He was the manager of Maskey under 14 last year and would have worked on our Kennedy Cup project with us.
You're big into the soccer now, aren't you?
Yeah. Look, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But, I rang Colin. I said, Colin, Jays, we're coming up to the South Infirmary. I have my uncle Francey, bachelor man who's only been in Cork 3 times in his life. The first time was in 1981 to say goodbye to Mom. The second time was at Christmas time to go on a checkup to say that there was an issue with him and that there was a suspected cancer situation, to which he said, I won't be coming back here. So he was happy to live with his own ailment, and then this was an emergency time.
Jeez.
Up we went, and I had to force him, and it was one of the toughest things I'll have to tell you that I ever did in my life, because here's a man that never spent a night outside his own bed in his own house in 74 years, had to sleep overnight.
Yeah, a big thing.
It is, yeah. And the funny story behind, the funny situation behind this was that that night he smoked about 9 cigarettes inside in the ward and nearly blew up the place because he was in oxygen. But when I rang the following morning, is everything okay? No. Francey nearly blew up the hospital. He was an oxygen mask and he lit up. I go, it's the shame of this one. How am I going to sell this one? And then Colin Fairjuice made a deal with the porters that he'd go out 4 times a night and 6 times during the day to allow himself have the cigarette. So after 3 days or 4 days, Francey was shipped back down to us. But when Francey arrived back down by ambulance, every single one of his neighbours were outside his door to welcome him back.
Wow.
Cattle fed.
How long ago is this now?
This was in April of this year.
All his neighbours were...
Yeah, all his neighbours.
Jesus.
Dick Leahy, all the lads, they power washed the house outside, painted it outside.
This was during the actual lockdown, right?
So during the lockdown, this was a situation where a whole neighbourhood of neighbours had come together.
That's amazing.
To and never asked for it. But
that's amazing. And not to want anything back.
Not to want anything, but more importantly than that, it was a second nature situation. So I drove up the road, I drove back up to Kilkenny.
So it's kind of in our genes, isn't it? Like,
it is,
maybe. Is that what we're saying? Like,
the idea of helping and giving is in our DNA. But when I looked at the ambulance coming in the road, you had 12, 14 people standing alongside his boreen, welcoming him home.
That's amazing, like. That's amazing.
And when Francey jumped out, the only thing he wanted was a cigarette. But then afterwards, he reflected, in fact, Christ, I have a great neighbours. They'll always see me right. Yeah. And I said, Francey, they will, of course, like, you know. Like, why wouldn't they?
I had the same thing as well. I wasn't well for a while, as you probably know, last year, which is, I'm grateful for to be here. And all the people in, all the nurses and doctors in the Mercy Hospital, and Tralee Hospital, and Cork Hospital, I think I've done them all now. But they were brilliant, you know. But to face something and to get the care and the attention from people like this, like, I think it does something to you. It kind of changes your whole perspective in life or something. I mean, Francey now wasn't used to maybe getting cared for.
No, this was a guy who never, when he would drive down, his whole life rotated around the fact that every 2 weeks he would drive down to the post office, draw his 200 and whatever it is, 436.
So he had, what I'm trying to say is he has a routine, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and the idea that somebody like him who lived a very secluded life would still have had a lot of neighbours who felt that he needed a hand when in a time of trouble.
So everybody, they're watching out for you, as they say.
Did,
do you know that
even below in the shop now, the centre shop below in Skull, like, every time I'd go in to buy dog food or dairy ration for feeding the cows, look, how's Francey? Is he on the mend? Can you throw him into the car? We'd like to say hello to him at social distancing, because when Francey came out of hospital, we had to isolate him for 2 weeks because just in case there was a COVID issue. Not that he needed isolation.
Yeah.
He lived in splendid isolation. Here's a guy who lived, his nearest neighbour was a half a mile away, and the only human contact besides me would have been the postman, and that's the life he chose, and he was delighted with that. And he'd meet Dick Leahy or Paddy Daly or one of the lads every other day, or that kind of thing. For him to go to Bantry, which is 14 miles a day, would happen probably twice a year, like the horse fair in August or the sheep fair in May.
Yeah, they come out like,
and that's secluded. It's a secluded lifestyle, but one that he has chosen. He's really.
I think so. I think if people choose it and they want
it,
we could get into the mental health part of it. I was just gonna, but the thing, choosing, taking your life path, choosing your life path. Does life choose your path, or do you choose your life path? That's another sort of interesting thing we could look at. But the thing is, you chose a different path, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had the shops, as you said, and things were going brilliant. Yeah, right, and something changed. What?
I felt, and here's the funny, peculiar situation here. I noticed that the shops had no longer an outlet to create a financial income. It was more than that. It was an idea that somebody come in, just have the chat. They didn't want a pair of socks or an underpants or a pair of jeans, but they wanted to say hello, say good morning. They wanted to have a chat with you. Had I become too busy because there was 5 different shops who'd come in to Bantry in the morning on a Monday, and by the time you're back home, it was 7 o'clock that evening, and you had other priorities.
No, there's a big commitment. If you want to be successful, you have to commit. It's a massive.
You're off Christmas Day, you're back St. Stephen's
You're
Day.
never off, really, are you, Aidan?
I mean, no, you're not. Yeah. And then you looked at my oldest girl, Ellen, who's like 22.
How many kids do you have? How many in family?
3.
Three,
so,
okay.
Yeah, Ellen is 22, Tom 19, Lily 16. And I noticed that the only interaction I had with them was either going to bed at night or getting up in the morning, getting them out of bed, and that was it. And they didn't see me for the rest of the day. I was some other.
And a lot of people identify with that. I'm sure.
And I was some other guy that was just domiciling in a house with their mother. All right, they seen me Christmas Day. When Santa would arrive at 5:30 in the morning, I would be videoing it, and the following day I was away somewhere else in making sure that the Lion.
You're sort of an energetic guy anyway, aren't you? You're always on the go, like.
Yeah, but the Lion King tree was on the shelves for Christmas. You had to get that out.
You have to push the product. Yeah.
And you were with O2 and.
You know if you're on your game or not. You're on top of the business and stuff, and you're pushing it forward. You know if it's doing well.
You are, and the whole fear of failure was taking a grip, and that. What if...
Would you have had that a lot, fear of failure?
Yeah, there was a fight and flight. There was a massive fight and flight situation in my life, yeah.
Now, you can name that now, because I know you've done some sort of development, self-development, or I'm not sure, you've done a degree or some sort.
We'll talk about it there.
But the thing is, now you know, but at the time you didn't know what it was.
Like, what was the anxiety?
Yeah.
I have to meet the bank manager or the regional manager for a quarterly review. God, that took 2 days. You ring your accountant. In my case, it was Kevin O'Reilly in Kimera. Really nice guy, really good accountant, and a trustworthy guy. And he would say to you, "Yeah, you're fine, Aidan. Look, you just do what you have to do. I don't even need." That was inherently, that became the problem, that all these people trusted me because they knew I was going to do right. However, inside my life was this whole fight and flight anxiety issue.
Okay, so anxiety caused you a lot of problems, like?
It was, and I wasn't going to tell anybody about what my...
Well, people didn't talk about it today.
No, not
especially if, it's like, geez, don't talk about how you're feeling.
Yeah, but here's this guy who has 36 people working with him, has 5 different businesses, and...
What's wrong with him, like?
Yeah, but inside my head every morning was, where am I going to get the next 50 grand to pay O2 or Universal Studios or 20th Century Fox or Hilfiger or Canterbury and whatever, you know?
Yeah. And they want their money, like.
Yeah, and it's not even that. Then, like, the car you didn't even have time to put oil in the car, and if the engine blew up, you just got a new car. That was kind of stuff. Look, in essence, it was like, it was. So
like, there was bonuses to it. I mean, money. I don't mind having a few pound. But it gives you a certain amount of freedom, doesn't it?
It doesn't.
Certain amount?
No, it doesn't.
No,
it
You're
doesn't.
fairly sure on that now?
Yeah, 100% certain, because the idea that you'd have 10,000 in the table there, 5,500 of it must go to Universal Studios or O2, 23% must go to the VAT man, the landlord needs...
But we're talking about 10%. Someone else's freedom here now.
Yeah, so 10%, and then there was this minute amount, maybe 80 quid that you owned. So you had 8%.
It is like that too.
Yeah, you have 80%. Yeah. Look, you know this, John, look, you...
Yeah. Oh, you got to pay. So
8%. It works out about 8% of what's left is for you. So that's 80.
That wouldn't be too far off.
80 quid in a thousand.
Yeah, and he's loaded, like, and there's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah, petrol in the car, and he also has to pay the house tax, and he has to pay.
So he's still loaded.
Yeah, and so you went home with a fiver, and on the way home you bought
a bag of anxiety.
Yeah, and a bag. Yeah, and sorry, I'll have some anxiety there, please.
Yeah.
On the way home. And look, but that was the life I wanted to live. So look, I had turned 30.
So you were flying, in other words, in a way,
right? I was a busy guy, filled with a whole bucket load of anxiety and stress. And
it seems like you hit the wall somewhere there. I mean, something must have changed, like.
I drove home one evening, and I arrived back in the house, and it became apparent that if I continue this lifestyle, the life expectancy would be probably mid-50s.
That's a massive moment, man.
Yeah. And here I am at 37, and that was giving me less than, would be 15 years to 20 years, and it's over. A couple of people that I got to know through the clothing trade and through the electronic side house had passed away at the age of 55. And
so you're watching these people kind of
wondering, like, what,
die off,
and you're
in
saying,
a way.
Like, oh, look, such and such a guy got cancer, and an inadvertent idea that, oh, look, the stress caused the cancer, or look, this other guy got stilts put in at the age of 50 and got, God, but sure. And then you hear that he was hopping a plane flying to China, and then he was in China for 4 days. He was going from there to Sydney, and Sydney back to Singapore and back into London, getting the samples, going out on the road for 7 weeks, and then taking 3 days off and doing it again. And here I was, who had an association with this person, looking at him, and I'm doing the same thing. Only I was only taking 1 day off St. Stephen's Day, or Christmas Day. I'm back on the road, on the phone, ringing 1,200 phone calls a month, receiving 1,150. So like the whole time you were on the phone 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So you became aware of where you were, didn't you?
I did. and I don't want to use the word crock of shit, but like, that's what it had ended up being.
Really? I mean,
yeah, it did, yeah.
How did it go from fantastic to running early businesses to being a crock of shit? I mean, that's a massive contrast, like.
It did, because I became a prisoner of my circumstances. You look at the 30 people that were working with you, all relied on you. You looked at the people who supplied you, all relied on you. You look at the landlords that owned the properties who had put their faith in you, that you were going to pay them, and the rest of it, and the responsibility. When you go home, you go home in the evening, and you've got to be responsible then for 3 young people and your wife, but all this is all made up in your own.
But you were
in my own head. This was
but like for looking about you, hearing what you're explaining it, right? You were responsible.
I was responsible, but
that's it, really.
The sense of responsibility that I had created this whole idea in my head that it was all on my shoulders, which technically it was, but if you delegate.
You seem pretty well able to delegate now.
No, yeah.
And that's a big thing for anyone growing their business, by the way, to be able to do that. Like, I mean.
It's fundamentally, I always had a trust that I trusted the people that worked with me were really great people.
It's fantastic.
The trust wasn't there, right?
That's
the trust wasn't there. The element was always there. But it was the idea of me if I had allowed myself to delegate, would I have been a better...
But you did delegate.
I did, and I did, but however...
I mean, we're always watching if we're employed.
But at the end of the day, my inner thoughts, my fears, my anxiety was, I never expressed that to anybody, because there was nobody within my community that I could express that, because why would I burden my problems on another person?
Is that what you kind of mean by the old Aidan and the new Aidan?
Yeah, it's not the new Aidan or the old Aidan. It's the transformation from the realisation that a lifestyle is not compatible if it continued in a particular way.
You're on about inner conflict, right?
Yeah, and the idea that you got to change, because the only person here who's going to suffer is yourself. And if you realise that, if you stand back and after 10 years or 12 years and say, well, if anxiety is out of my life, where and what can be achieved is the major. So
you saw, in other words, you saw that was a problem.
It was.
And what did you get help? Did you just stop it yourself, or did you change your life? Did you sit down and write it all out? Or
no, not at all. I couldn't because I was trapped.
Trapped.
So
you effectively you didn't know what to do, like?
No, I couldn't do anything. I was trapped within a circle which I created myself. If I was the person who stepped out of that circle, the whole thing would collapse.
Jesus.
And the idea.
So you could see the whole house of cards would collapse. Like.
Yeah, but the foundation, being me, was as unstable as quicksand. It might have looked as if it was solid, but it was quicksand.
So that the foundations weren't strong.
No, the emotional foundation was. At the age of 38 or 39, I was having doubts about my own self. Look,
we all have them.
We do.
I mean,
I've.
But that's not to dilute what's happening for you or what happened for you. Like,
no, but I didn't realise that I had somebody at home that lived in the same house as me, that slept in the same bed as me.
Watching all this.
Yeah. Was willing that when I spoke to that person, being my wife, and we're married 25 years since last last April, sorry, but I don't know why she's even stayed with me, because I can't even get the dates right at this stage.
You're going to be shot when you go home.
My long-term memory's disappearing.
You'll be anxious going home.
Yeah, my long-term memory's gone. My short-term memory's gone.
Same as myself.
Yeah, I was a disaster. But look, to be fair, she picked up the pieces and said, listen, you've got...
Your great supports.
It's not even that. It's even more than that.
Wow.
This is somebody who turned on and put, hey, I can recognise that the whole thing is a mess. Then let's fix it by doing 1, 2, tree. And we did that. So if the idea of selling the one aspect of the business was going to have to happen, it had to happen to take the pressure off me. And we did that. But the pressure didn't come off me, because then I created a new environment of anxiety.
This is really interesting, because that's what people do. I just looked at what I know a small bit about the mind, as I look into my own thinking patterns and things like that. The mind will always look for a problem, won't it? It'll always create some sort of a new scenario.
But why? The reason is because you're in that cycle, and you need to look at the cycle of negativity and park it.
Oh, you weren't really negative. I mean, you set up a business. How could you be negative, people would say, like? I mean, people listening would probably think, the guy's really positive, set up a business and he's flying.
Yeah, but when you wake up in the morning, anxiety was the only thing that was the only, and I'll use this word, anxiety was the only friend you had in the passenger seat.
Do you know, I wouldn't be that anxious in my life, right? Yeah. Like, you know, we all get anxious, right? But a couple of times where I got really anxious, Jesus Christ, like you'd be so anxious you couldn't stay in your own body. It's a bit.
Yeah,
like,
but so
it's tough. It's tough to live with it. I mean,
I used to have this idea. I'd leave Kenmare and I'd drive to West Cork, and for the 45 minutes I'd be on the phone. But then when you wouldn't be on the phone because the signal might be gone, the passenger alongside you was anxiety and was fear and was everything else.
That's tough, man. Yeah.
And you'd be thinking, and oh God, I'm overthinking that. But when it finally became the time back.
So you sit down with your wife, right, and you're sorting things out, and like you didn't even have the problems of the house of cards collapsing. You had the problem of how you're going to deal with something like anxiety that you've had all your life as well.
And had built.
Was your wife aware of the anxiety?
No, and she wasn't until it became the real problem. Like, why did a guy who had a love for this sort of business and the business models that I was part of, how come I got to hate it so much? You look at bank managers saying, listen, geez, make sure you don't, you're buying another house. Okay, 315 grand. Make sure you don't die over the weekend.
And your man is saying, Aidan, Aidan will be fine.
Yeah, and
they're wondering, well, Jesus, Aidan isn't fine.
Yeah, and I wrote a check for like 290 grand and the house bought, and then you go in 5 weeks later and say, geez, I was signing the bottom line there. And your man say, everything is going well. Look, I can see the bottom line is wonderful. And you walk out there and going, Jesus Christ, my head is wrecked.
Yeah.
And you'd go home and you'd have 5 bottles of Heineken then, and you'd fall asleep in the chair, and you get up the following morning.
Do the same thing again.
Yeah. So in the end,
did you stop loving what you were doing? Like,
oh yeah, hate it.
I mean, I love doing what I'm doing. I love business. I love the whole thing of it. I mean,
you do. But the problem then became, I became acutely aware that in 2008 I'd fallen out of love. I was in the middle of doing one last project. It was like a gambling thing. Oh, look, if I do this, it'll
set you up for life.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to have the house in
that big one.
Yeah, I'll have the house in Barbados for the summer for 3 months, and you know, I might actually then go down to my sister-in-law in Australia for 2 more months.
Sounds good.
Sure, look, I can be walking the roads of Kenmare and West Cork then for the other 3 or 4 months and tell everybody what a wonderful guy I am. But everything will go away. Jeez, there won't be anxiety, there won't be stress, and I'd be just handing money out to everybody for every cause. It didn't happen. It fell apart. The project fell apart. I don't blame anybody for it, looking back in reflection. However, I was very cross over it that all these people who promised me salvation, the chance to have a wonderful life, doing nothing for the rest of my life, didn't produce the goods. Lehman Brothers was the start of it. Then it became the 2 toxic banks in the States, and then the whole thing collapsed, and you couldn't get a farthing from your own gang. Look, that whole 2 or 3 years became apparent that not alone was I in that particular situation, but 80% of all other SMEs were also burdened down with that whole...
It was heavy going, 2008.
Yeah. And it became apparent that I wasn't alone, that there was, like I said, 80% of all SMEs were in the same boat, the tile shop, the curtain guy, and I'm not labelling any particular type of business. That even
nobody was immune to getting hit by it.
And we weren't immune to it. And here was a whole swart of people who gave their time honourably, and if they look back and reflect that because of the amount of hours they put in, as opposed to the amount of money they got, were working for €6 or €7 an hour.
If you actually boil it down, I mean, there's guys out there, like, if you're self-employed, like, to be honest, there's a certain amount you can only earn, and it's very hard to earn more than that. You know, for most small businesses, you know, it's like there's It's difficult. It's difficult.
It's more than difficult because when you reflect on the realisation that you're working 60 or 70 hours a week.
I work 6-7 days sometimes, you know.
I know you do.
Yeah, I work at home as well, but I like it, you know.
When I pick up the phone to you, you have to be on the other end to answer my query.
I do, yeah.
So, and you don't ever put a monetary value on that time. And here's the thing, that if you're actually working 7 days a week as a self-employed person, 600 you decide to pay yourself, divided by 60 hours comes to 10 an hour, but not you're doing 9. And he has a nice phone all the time. Oh, look, he's the latest iPhone 12 Pro.
Yeah.
You have to use the iPhone 12 Pro to attract your customer to buy the iPhone 12 Pro.
Look, and it's fine. I mean, the thing about it is, I think it's in my DNA. The entrepreneurial thing is just something I like doing. I mean, I love it, and that's fine. But I also have things change in my life as well, which put me on a different track or whatever. That's why I can identify with yourself in a way. My life went one way, it changed. I had a reality check, and then I got back on board. I went into business. It's the reverse of that in some respects, but I do still have, I never forget where I came from. I still do have a great sense of what life's about and what really matters as well. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, you know? So this sense of your life, getting back to that, everything changed for you, right? Is what I'm trying to say, that change again.
Look, we looked... I look, a lot of people say you're the luckiest guy in the world.
Do you think you're the luckiest guy?
Yeah, life has thrown me an old 4 in the life dice. Like 6 would be euphoric, and I'd be sunning myself and
in Barbados.
Yeah,
and visiting your sister in Australia.
That's a false. See, that's a false.
It could happen yet, though.
It's a false. No, Mary, my sister-in-law in Australia, gets sick of me after about 2 weeks.
So I know, but you ever get the thought it could happen yet, though?
No, it's not going to happen. No. It's not going to. I listen. I know.
Maybe it might happen. Maybe someday you go. Yeah.
I don't even play the lotto. Okay, so I don't put myself in the position anymore to allow myself or even entertain a potential lifestyle where you can obtain that type of false euphoria. Trust me. I want to wake up in the morning now, and when you put your 2 feet in the ground, you're going to say, right, where's this day going to bring me? But can I reflect back between 2008 onwards?
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to that. Yeah. I want to know what.
So I ended up getting a phone call from a very, very nice guy, Gerard Murphy, who's a liquidating accountant in Cork, and he asked me if my knowledge of the retail trade was still intact, and I said I would. So I went away and I did a project for a family who were in serious difficulty at the time. And I noticed the common trait here was the anxiety and the whole...
So you started to identify with other people and what they were going through.
And the whole sense of rejection, that people don't love me anymore because I'm a failure, and the whole community have turned against me because I'm a failure. And I'm going, no, they're not. You're today's newspaper item, you're tomorrow's chip wrapper. What I mean by that is in long ago in chip shops, newspaper was used to wrap the chips. So the Cork Examiner, they'd carry them in this today, and tomorrow they were wrapping chips in it. So you were today's news and tomorrow's chip wrapper.
That's the way it is.
And I used to say that to people, and they'd look at me and go, oh no, that's not the case. Look, what about this and what about that? And that person is saying that, but I said they're not. You think they are, and it's all in your mind. Oh, look the way that guy's looking at me.
See, it's the mind, isn't it, again?
It's the mind.
Yeah. Look, Liz, you didn't just see this like straight off. I mean...
No, you didn't.
I want to know, like, kind of, like, for other people going out there that, your life is going a certain way, and you can't... Well, some people have a massive transformation, a spiritual awakening, maybe. Would you call it a spiritual awakening?
It wasn't like a road to Damascus moment.
Well, it happens,
No, it wasn't a road to Damascus moment. I always did what I did when I could for people or for a community. But because of the work I was in, working 364 days in the year for 12 to 16 hours a day, I wasn't able to give back, nor did I have the time. Remember now, there was 3 young people in my house as well, and they needed the 6.5 minutes each per day of my contact time, right? And that's in itself, I'm delighted what I did and what I had to do when I did it, because I think that changed the whole environment and the contact time you have with your children aged between 9 to
especially 18. When they're younger,
Yeah, and it became very evident that I went from the stranger who had 6.5 minutes contact time, putting him to bed, saying goodnight, throwing out the cornflakes in the morning stuff, to the person who then became very active in their life. And teaching them how to cycle, teaching them how to... So
we're missing that part where that happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean...
So here, the interesting situation was...
Because it seems like a massive contrast.
Yeah, George actually asked me to do a project. I did a project for him.
Is this how it started?
Yeah.
The road...
Yeah.
The different path? Like?
We won't call it the road to Damascus moment.
No, I was going to say that, but it's not.
But the issue here was the awareness that other people and myself shared the same emotional difficulties.
So what you're saying was... You had all this anxiety. The business were kind of going. They weren't failing. They were doing well.
No. To be fair, I sold the video and phone business, and that was a quite successful model. And people looked at it as a very good multi-platform model. It had 4 different businesses within the business model, and it was giving a net profit of about 14% in a trade that doesn't allow 14%.
For 14%,
high margin, right?
You're selling a television, you might be lucky to get 5%.
Yeah,
you're selling an Apple product, you get 2%.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you looked at it where I transferred the whole video shop, two fingers in the air, to a DVD product within 7 months, based on the fact that I would have purchased DVD machines at 14 and 15 euros that had multi-platform play, like in-seat. Remember, back the time you had the American use a different system to us, Europe had a different system to us, and then we used the PAL system, right? And like people don't even realise that, but within 6 months I had this multi-platform DVD machine that Sean Mahoney had located somewhere in Taiwan to a point of where we were bringing in pallet loads of them, landing them inside in the shop floor, 48 in a pallet downstairs, pallet in the storeroom and pallet upstairs, ready. And all these people, we were selling these for $34.99. We changed the model of all VHS was now gone and everybody was doing DVD.
Oh yeah, DVD was yeah.
And we did that within 4 months. So the margin on...
So you weren't, change was easy to you?
Change was always easy. I had no emotional attachment to change. So like, I didn't...
But you did have an attachment to changing your life.
Oh yeah. Because
to get out of the loop, right?
Yeah. Look.
So, what would you say to people? Like, what did you learn from it? Like, I mean, you went from that, and did you do training? Did you train up in something?
The commonality here with all the people that I dealt with was the same. They all had anxiety issues. They all were afraid of failure, and when failure arrived, it choked them, and they ended up having the inability to think clearly. I know some people say, "Oh, think outside the box." So we looked at that. I noticed I seem to have some sort of skill set to allow people the ability to think straight after having a contact time of 2 weeks. Oh, look, what do you need? Oh, look, if you're the tile shop guy, I need a van, I need a tile cutters, I need adhesive, and I need grout, and I need a white and beige tile, and I'm back up and running. Was it his fault that his business died? No.
Yeah.
Was he so here's a cycle here. I'll tell you a cycle. Tyler, first of all. Tyler, you're a great guy. You're doing great turnover. The bank manager hands you 100 grand. You hire another tiler. You have 4 guys working. You have 7 guys working. Then you open up your own tile shop. Then you invest in the tile shop premises and you buy it.
So it's, it kind of it goes that way.
It became a whole cycle. And then the whole thing, you're fitting 25 houses in an estate, or you're doing you're doing a warehouse, and all of a sudden the whole thing shuts down. The guy who owns the
completely stops.
Yeah, and he can't pay you. You can't pay your workers. You can't pay the bank. You can't pay for the tax on your vans, and then the whole thing goes south, and you're gone into liquidation. So.
And you're at the kitchen table with your wife.
Yeah, and Ulster Bank.
And you're both talking about...
I shouldn't be talking about the 4 banks that were there at the time, but these banks were in the same situation. So they were looking at to be refinanced, and they had to get money from somewhere. So they were going to put the pressure on you because you're on the start of the
Someone
food
has
chain.
to get the rod,
Yeah, and you're the first in the food chain.
In fact, if you're 200 million, they'd probably sit down and have tea with you.
They have to negotiate.
Do you know what I mean?
Because it was only 2 fingers in the air, 50 to 250,000. You were an SME. You were the target.
SMEs got it, yeah.
Let's rake up
the
all
big
these.
Guys kind of were negotiating with just what I think.
Here's the phrase my father always said. Up to $1 million, it's your problem.
Yeah.
Over $1 million, it's the bank manager's problem. Because why did he give it to you? And there we had. So all the guys under $1 million who had a hassle.
We're all running for cover.
Were being raked up and brought in to be shot. Right? All the other guys were, how are we going to deal with this? And more than one person made that decision.
Jesus. It was, look, you got through that, right?
Yeah, we got through that. But here's the thing. So I had a lot of free time in my hands then, right? And the lads back in Paris said, would I mind training a football team? I'm going, God. what?
Yeah, is that how coming into soccer? I'll train.
So I trained.
Why don't you go down the road there and train the young fellas? Like,
yeah, under 10 team, right? So you looked at it, and after about 3 or 4 weeks, I noticed that different people had different abilities. So you had the guy who was out in front.
So we won't miss the thing, though. Sorry, we won't miss the thing. Like, we won't miss the whole thing. What happened here?
I was still very busy. So
but community came in.
Yeah, it did. But
that was that the change? Like,
it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I was already inadvertently involved in helping people put their lives back in order.
Were you helping people when you had the business? Like you did mention that people come in and have chats with you and stuff.
And we look.
But still, local football team. Okay, but there was nothing in nothing.
No, but there
particular.
was still a sense of community in my own mind. But then, when you look at the liquidation in the things and look at people who are in receivership or liquidation, that was a different animal altogether, because you had to work and do your best for the people that were under pressure to allow them the chance twofold. One, get back into business and realise that they're not a failure. The circumstances around the environment.
You're not your circumstances.
And why should you become a prisoner? Why are you going to become a prisoner to your
circumstances? Yeah.
And a lot of people were. We were told, and don't blame the state, don't blame the issue with banking. It was just what it is. And once you got over that and stopped living with anger and with fear and anxiety, and say, listen, what do you really need to put food on your table? So fight or flight situation. Food on your table, a roof over your head, closing.
You're on about the basics, eh?
Yeah, and it was stripping this back to the basics. So remember this: food on the table first, closing your back, roof over your head. 3 priorities. Everything else we can live without. You can live with the same phone for 2 months. So
is that what she kind of is that the decision you got to?
It was a decision I had inadvertently come into. So when you speak to the guy in Longford, he had the same necessities as the guy in West Cork.
We all had the same.
Yeah, but you don't realise that. The guy who owned 5 hotels, who now lost everything, his priority was, first of all, close food in the stomach, clothes in their back, and more importantly, roof over their head. And if you can achieve that, then everything else doesn't matter, because we were now in a different game.
Different
life
thing.
Game, different scenario. So
and you went off training and did the soccer, but you did training, you did a degree in, what's your degree in?
Between 2008 and 12, I was back into a community situation, helping businesses and people working in business to get back on their feet and lose this limited company idea and come back into sole traders. And at the same time, I'd gone training the local under 10 team. And you look at your 23 guys, and the most important thing I realised that if they left the field every day with a smile on their faces, in my mind, that was the achievement. In real terms, each one of the parents of those children had a different priority. Some of them wanted their son or daughter to play for Kerry. More of them wanted their son or daughter to stay safe in a field while they did the shopping. They were babies. I was a babysitter, a glorified babysitter for them. And somewhere in the middle was the guy who wanted his son or daughter have an enjoyment. And the first thing you do, your son or daughter comes in at age 10. Oh, what you do today? Oh, Dad, we learned how to kick with our left foot, or kick the right foot, or we cut the ball overhead. And then he turns on the radio, or she turns on the radio and says, oh yeah, that's great. However, if your child walked in, oh, I don't love you like this, I wasn't happy here. First of all, there's no radio going on. I say, why not? What was the reason? Within the sport environment in 2010 or 12, and within the whole confines of where we were, this whole idea that only the best could achieve anything in a sporting environment by having a pyramid of where there was 100 guys in the top, and you would stand on their shoulders to achieve your goal.
But Aidan, you just had this, you saw this, right?
Did, yeah,
you didn't have any training or help or counselling
at that stage, no. It
was, or degrees in psychology,
no,
or
there was no parchments hanging off.
But that's quite a good awareness to have. Not everybody has this way of thinking, way of being.
But John, you're all the time dealing with the public, so you see different aspects of it.
So what you're saying is that you were in service when you had the businesses, because I believe I'm in service to people.
You are.
I know I get paid, but I'm in service to them.
You know yourself.
So you're still in service when you left the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you still are now.
You are. And look, you know yourself, some person coming back when I had the business, oh, do you mind if my uncle's in hospital, I've no money on me, can I get a pyjamas and slippers? I'll bring up and a dressing on, and look, I will come back to you next week. Look, again, you had a box there with a credit with 200 people that owed you 48 or 50,000, and they paid you a tenner every week. The de facto Littlewoods or whatever it was, where you paid €10 a month or whatever it would be. And that was because of the community I come from in West Cork.
But that's service, it's community.
It is. And it was.
As you say, I think it's a great way to operate. Like, check in.
Yeah.
Is everything all right? How are you?
Yeah.
It's like the community thing. It's like everybody waiting for Francey down the thing. It's that spirit.
Absolutely.
But I'm all over that. I think that's a great way to be.
Here's the funny, I'm going to go back. The great thing about Francey is...
Francey's the topic of this conversation.
He was oblivious to all this Meitheal.
It's all about Francey, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's all about the great Francey. Because Francey, for me, cemented my faith in human nature.
He's stuck in my head now.
Remember in Cork of the day, we were going to have to drive back up to Cork, technically go into a hospital, take him out of it when it was time for him to be checked out, and then one of us as the family would have to isolate for 14 days. The ambulance, there was 7 ambulances from West Cork up there at the time. There was one from Castlebar, there was 2 from Bantry, 1 from Dunmanway, Clonakilty. The ambulance guy said, no, we'll bring him back to Skull. We'll bring him back home. So it'll prevent all of you from having to isolate. And that was, when I heard that, so Colm Murray, thank you for the work you've done with Francey. He doesn't thank you for it, but trust me.
Sounds like a good guy.
We know that you're the guy, right? Providing an outlet where he can be wheeled out by the porters to go and have a cigarette, which didn't put anxiety in his life, to the point of where his life was probably saved by the doctor because he was suffering from septicemia.
Oh, yeah.
The local nurse who provided the medication for him for the next 5 weeks, so because he wasn't aware that a certain amount of antibiotics was only admissible to his body. And if he OD'd, because these were very heavy antibiotics, usually you've got to go in an intravenous drip for 5 weeks if you have septicemia of that intensity. Like if you're 80% of your body is poisoned, then you have to go on an intravenous drip for 5 weeks in hospital. But every part of the medical chain provided an outlet that he could do that from home. It was going to be difficult, but we all came together to provide that outlet.
So you got passionate, right? Am I right now? You got passionate about community, about helping people?
Yeah, but it was an embryotic situation where I was that guy. You were then asked, would you train the under-10 team? And then you realised afterwards.
She went from Aidan's grand to that guy.
Yeah, and then I noticed I noticed the coaching techniques was all based on winning. And using my experience,
like you were in business, and like service, it changes.
I only defined
how it's defined. Yeah,
I defined 2 things. One was how many guys were playing with me. Oh, we still had 23, but I tell number 16 to 21, you'll get your place if you work harder. Right, this is very important. You'll get your place if you
saw
harder.
Potential. Like
I wanted to win by 20 points against Glenflesk, Rathmore, the Crokes, the Legion, right. And then I decided, how can I become a better coach? I need to read more into the better coach philosophy.
You couldn't help it, could you? You had to.
I want to be the New England Patriot guy. I want to listen to him. I want to listen to Jurgen Klopp. Not at the time, it was like Joachim Low.
Like Aidan, I have to say that's your entrepreneurial spirit coming in.
It was, but
isn't it though? Really, but in a different context. It
was,
and it still is.
It is, however.
Is it?
And I'll use the word however.
Yeah.
With capital letters all the way. 6 or 7 months into this 3rd level program I did with Setanta.
What was the program?
Physical fitness and conditioning, strength and conditioning for sport. It was an 18-module degree course. I had done a diploma in sports coaching, DIT, before that to dip my toe in the water. And it was 80% physical based, 20% cognitive based. As like the sports psychology thing was only sprinkled. It was sprinkled on. If you have,
it was never talked about, was it?
If you have your team in a positive frame of mind,
what you talk about?
Yeah, waffle.
Get a grip, like.
And I had to write that as part of the project to give it its 20 to get my 10% to qualify to get my diploma.
To get your module.
But that's all waffle. Look, come here, at the end of the day, once I get 3 guys or 4 guys in that team to be the spine of that team to win, it didn't matter. So the first 5 or 6 modules, meaning the first year and a half, doing the certificate part of the course, was all about preparing the person to be a better athlete. The second 6 modules was about creating a team environment to make a better team. And the last 6 was about you, the coach, sports psychology, why, the reasoning why you're doing it, questioning yourself and questioning the team, the impact on your decision making, the team, and are you there to create a better team or a better individual within the team? And the more I dug into this, I looked and said, this is really important. And what I'm doing is, again, making a lovely picture, but behind the picture there was no substance. So I was making all these wonderful footballers, look at them, but I was allowing 6 guys in a team.
But it seems like you hit the wall there as well, did you?
I did, yeah. I questioned myself again. I questioned myself, and I said to myself, no, this what I'm creating is I'm allowing a pyramid where 23 guys in the team are there to facilitate 6 people getting to the next level. And then within that 23 people, are you only facilitating 6 people to get to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. So local parish becomes district, Kenmare district. So there's 4 teams feeding in. If my 6 guys are making the district team, or my 7 guys are... So
winning was the whole...
It was about winning.
Winning again. It was not like in business, it's about winning.
Yeah, it was I use a business model.
And you were fairly competitive.
My parents loved it.
Yeah, of course. Look,
because we're winning.
The parents want their child to win.
Look, if your son or daughter didn't play...
But that's natural. That's nature. But
here's the important thing. Your son and daughter at the end of the year was photographed with that cup. They mightn't have played a minute with me. They mightn't have played 30 seconds with me, but they were there standing next to the cup.
Yeah, it's important.
Or is it?
Well, it's important for the kid.
It was important for me.
Ah, yeah. Well, you're getting into another thing now. If you can see into that.
I justified my greatness because I had a cup. So, hold on. Where did I go with the cup? I took 4 laps of the town with the cup. I took 4 laps of the cup. And I'm 43 at the time. That other 23 under 10 guys, hey, F them. They were just facilitating.
Right, where the young fella's going, where's he gone with the cup? He's going taking off up top.
Yeah, he's sleeping with the cup that night. Look, and I'm facilitating. And here's the beauty.
He's got the cup at home on the mantelpiece.
Yeah, they're facilitating my greatness.
The poor kids are looking for it.
What they're doing is they're cementing my greatness as a
but I don't think... But you could look at it that way.
Well,
look, if you want to know what I think, every motive we have is selfish. Even helping people is selfish.
No, it's not.
Why are we doing it then? It's selfish. It's because I feel good if I help someone.
No, yeah, of course. So there's this
it's selfish
euphoria behind
in a way.
No, but listen, come here. You don't look. You feel great for helping somebody if somebody else finds out. If a third party.
Yeah, but I feel great. They don't feel great for me helping them because I feel a certain way. I mean.
Okay, the important thing here is, remember, I've won a cup, and that's all.
I'll get back to the cup,
and the other 23 guys that facilitated my greatness didn't bat because they're 10. And when they're 36 or 7 and the show's over, they can do the same.
Yeah, I know.
But remember, I was selling all those parents, hey, your son is so fantastic, your son is the best, your daughter's the best. And you know what? I'm a great coach. And you know what?
I'm a great guy.
Hey, you have a picture, so you have John F. Kennedy, the Blessed Virgin, and me.
I sometimes have them moments. I go home, have a cup of tea, and I just sit in the corner going, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm. And I actually had sold a wonderful story to everybody. And we were all in this together, and we were all going touring the country, and we're all going to win matches and win all Irelands and be the greatest ever. And I had this idea that all those cups lined up and all those medals around my chest were going to make me, was because I was a great coach.
Yeah, but you're competitive and you're an entrepreneur. Whether you like it or not, you'll always be one, I think. Yeah, that's what I think.
But
sorry, but it's just...
But then you're throwing another issue. What if you hadn't the best team? What if you were...
So I think I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Like, I love being the underdog. You're going to the underdog. Are you going to the underdog?
You're okay, so I want to...
Could you help the underdogs? I don't want to mean... I'm not being disingenuous to anybody that John, you've helped.
John,
I don't mean it that way.
Let's go. What if you were given a bunch of people who, in the eyes of... And I don't want to label them... Who don't have a sporting background. Now, create a model that allow them to participate in, allow a sport that they are going to enjoy, and then what longevity would they have in active physical fitness. There was the new model because of the learning outcomes I had from Setanta. They instilled a sense of self-awareness that...
Yeah, I am big into self-awareness.
It's not about the winning. We all can win.
Well, I like winning.
Well, today you and I could have a coin toss situation, see who'll win.
But it's not everything to me, like.
But it's correct.
It's a game. Business is a game.
And
it's just a game.
And once you realise that it's a game, and when you're playing the game, you want to do the best, but you got to learn to step away from it, because what carnage are you leaving behind? So,
I wouldn't, personally, I don't want to leave carnage of any sort. So
if you're the young fella who played in my team, 2 fingers in the air, I was giving you 2 fingers in the air, who was number 26 but never got a game, he never had the ability to, I don't want to use the word perform, but he was never put in a position that allowed him not achieve, but improved his own sporting abilities, because I, as a coach, didn't
Isn't that helping the underdog again?
No, I didn't trust him. See, I didn't trust him to come on the field. Why didn't I trust him? Because he wasn't good enough.
Okay.
So that's the subliminal story I'm telling. So if you're number 26...
So what you're talking about here is you're talking about personal integrity a lot.
Yeah. And number 26 had not an entitlement to go on the field because I didn't believe he had the attributes that was good enough.
That's a big thing to see, man.
Yeah, and here's the funny thing. When you talk to that guy 3 years later, I'm awfully sorry I didn't give you the opportunity to go on the pitch. And he said to me, I don't think I was ready. And I'd say, why? You said I wasn't. But I was selling you a lie back then, and you believed it. So here was people who had the ability to influence children, and because of what you said, it had a profound effect on their thinking for the short term. For me, if you're that 13-year-old boy or 12-year-old boy that I influenced him to think that he wasn't ready, when in fact I should have been promoting. Why wasn't I giving him 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 9 minutes, 12 minutes, and allowing him? So here's the thing.
You've been really honest about this, I have to say.
So here's the thing, really important. 14 years later, I'm sitting down in an interview inside in Trinity College, ready to sell my shit to them, saying I'm good enough to do a master's in enterprise and innovation.
Right?
And here's the question that was asked: what's your position on failure? And for some funny moment,
don't ask me that.
Yeah, for some funny moment, that moment I said, you cannot move forward unless you fail.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah, and the person alongside, across the table, went and said, that's the most profound answer.
That's profound, man. Yeah. And you just came out with it.
Yeah, look, whether it was everybody who...
Philosophy.
My family died. And
philosopher extraordinaire, man.
They're all feeding in. Hey, we need to give Aidan one moment. You can't move forward unless you fail. I'm going, Jesus Christ, where did I hear this one? As it came out of my mouth, I was like, whoa.
Fail harder, like.
How is somebody going to counteract that in an interview for me to get to Trinity? And the person along said, that's fantastic. I've never heard anybody say that.
It's very good.
I said, by failure, we learn from the experience.
It's not how often you fail, you fall. It's how many times you get up. Yeah.
And what they said? I know, it was like really weird.
Yeah.
Let's go for a cup of coffee. And I'm going,
that's really cool.
Right, out the door.
You've made it, like, you're in.
And the person said...
But authentically in.
Yeah. And the person said, we want you to work on specific projects for us because we feel you have the capacity and life experience to...
And life experience, like. Yeah. So all that anxiety and all that stuff you thought was negative is positive.
It's positive. However, I needed somebody to give me clarity at the time. I needed somebody to say, put their hand on my shoulder.
Intervention?
Yeah, and say, in 2008, everything's going to be okay, but you've got to take the pain of failure to succeed, to work on what you need to do in the future. Can I revert back to the 13-year-old guy? When he became 14, by the way, I won. I was a winner. I had John F. Kennedy, Jesus. It could be Garrett Fitzgerald.
Garrett Fitzgerald.
No, but
come out of the bushes.
To get a certain segment of the community.
I know Garrett's fine. He's fine.
Eamon de Valera. See,
he's a bit too heady for me when I was younger. I just thought,
so whatever the mantelpiece moment was.
Nelson Mandela is my hero. One of the men.
Did you have a photograph of Nelson Mandela on top of your fireplace? No. So I was up there. My picture was there. Remember, my picture was with the 23 under 12 guys. I'm I'm adorning the walls of some people's houses to this day, 12 and 13 years on.
I think that's great. You're on the fireplace with John F. Kennedy and
John F. Kennedy and Jesus.
Jesus,
right?
I don't know. I couldn't reach Jesus' pinnacle, but anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, here's the thing. Back then, I was feeding a lie to people. So we realised.
I don't know so much a lie.
It was. Come on, listen. It was.
I mean, a lie. No. I looked at. A lie is like I'm going to lie to this person. I'm not going to tell them the truth. No, but you were unconsciously.
No, sorry. A lie, no matter what it is a lie. We've got to be honest.
I'm being honest. But I think it's like this, right? I can't be responsible for anything that goes on in my head, right? Until I become aware of it.
Of course.
Previous to that, I'm ignorant.
Yeah, okay. So do you want to fish or do you want to learn how to fish? The famous thing.
Give me a rod, yeah.
Yeah, we all go to South America, all the conquistadores, and they go, we know, we see that your ink.
It's Barbados, actually. Or Australia.
Or Dominican Republic, whatever.
Dominican Republic.
See all your religion, adoring false gods. That's it. We have a guy that really is the guy. Jesus is his name. And by the way, we're going to rob
I think you're being...
See all the gold in your country? Jesus wants that in Rome, and we're going to give it to him.
So Jesus has become Caesar.
Yeah. So in my case...
This is getting really too heavy for me.
No, that was funny, but
I know. I'm trying to work it out in my head, but I'm lost. I'm lost at Jesus and Caesar. Anyway.
Remember, from a coaching point of view, coming back to the main topic, 15 to 23 didn't matter in my life. They wore the jersey, but it didn't matter. Hey, those guys,
wow.
They're I know they're happy with the photograph, but by me telling them that
that
they're not ready, that they were accepting of their fate. Remember, John, they accepted their fate.
Okay.
So 2 years later, because success.
I know, but I'm still wondering. I don't think you're lying to yourself. I think you're ignorant to the fact that this was going on.
Right. Yeah, maybe looking back at it, yeah. But remember, John, success has many children, failures an orphan.
Well,
so
I've heard that, but I've never really heard it. Do you know? Yeah, now I hear it.
So the guy in Bantry that we came down once a year to whip by 40 pints, why are all his 23 players playing? Sure, he's putting on the weak guys now, and hey, let's drive home the fact that we're Kerry and we are willing to whip you to death.
Look, if you're playing football in Kerry, man, you're going to have to be great,
And here's the funny thing,
it's part of
the guy in Bantry said to me, geez, you've a fair strong team there, knowing you're from Kerry.
Yeah.
And he accepted that, but remember this, they won a college's title 6 years later.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, because he allowed the whole platform of his team get exposed at an early age. Remember, you can't go forward unless you fail. So
it's a bit like the Germans against.
By me hammering, and there's actually a model called the Exos model. Which let's not get technical. Let's deal with what we're here to deal with today. You look at the whole idea. So here's again another road to Damascus moment. I realised that the whipping by cup that's presented to me for being the greatest guy ever, and we all drive around the town with me in the cup, and I slept with the cup that night, and the kids were entitled to the cup for 5 minutes, but it was all about me moment at the end, right? But I had, remember now, I'm not saying it was like a cult that everybody bought into the cult of winning, but I realised one guy might want to leave to go playing golf or hurling, and he's the high achiever, so I needed somebody to replace them. But remember, I was only down to 14 guys at that stage. Or if I was a soccer team, I was only down to 10. I needed to find somebody, but I had nobody ready. Nobody's ready to take up that mantle because I had suppressed that whole team. I was only allowing one particular patron. I was in charge of that patron, and it hadn't the ability to pivot left or right. If I was the guy in Bantry who played all 18 guys.
It's kind of like black and white, grey. See the grey, grey is important.
Yeah,
I used to be black and white, but grey is important.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I changed the mantra. Jesus, your man is getting the shit beat out of him this year. And then I said, if a parent said, "Oh, what's happening this year? Why are we getting beaten?" And I'd explain, and he might say, "Fuck, you're thinking too much about this. We need to get back to where we're." This was said to me. We need to get back to where we are, and I walked away because parents weren't happy. And this is very tough to say, weren't happy that my outcome and their outcome were totally different.
Yeah.
And the silent majority 15 to 23, didn't have a voice. Didn't have a voice. They were not entitled.
So that's the orphan.
They were, They
the orphan guy.
They weren't entitled to turn around to the rest of the group and say, actually, we would actually be very happy if number 16 got 5 minutes. But remember, I had created an environment that was based on a winning formula.
So you went from
winning
to help, as I see,
winning.
But as I see, you've gone from winning, right?
Winning,
yeah.
Really winning.
Sleeping with the cup and John F. Kennedy above the fireplace.
Hey, it was me.
Yeah.
Forget about John F. John F. was somebody that there wasn't loving or hadn't, but you could see me every other day.
I think we've all kind of had moments like that, but
to this other animal.
But the thing, to be fair to what I hear you saying, you've come in and out the shop and you'd be saying you're nipping up to Limerick helping some lad that's really in trouble, man.
Yeah, look.
I'm on about folks really fucked. Excuse the language, but...
Yeah, but remember, the most important part here is you've gone from a winning mentality, winning formula, winning, to a realising that that's a car that has only got a certain amount of distance in the tank, and when the wheels do come off it, what's going to happen after that? So the loss. So
are they really winning anyway? You're wondering? Yeah,
I wasn't winning.
Yeah, he's like you.
Yeah.
He's like a mini me kind of.
Yeah. So what we did was really what I did was I looked at people around me who hadn't an aggressive appetite for winning, and who were in a different environment to where I was, and I found that person, and his mantra was tutor young people to improve their skills. I realised I needed that instilled. I asked him to come working with me, training this team, and he said, "Why me?" Because I said, "You're the best at this. You can instill a sense of honesty that I can't bring to the table." Because remember now, I'm the winning coach. So when I got involved in the Tilly Wings team, there was only going to be one outcome here.
Yeah.
I whipped you until you won. But how can I strip myself back down and become the other guy? And no matter what I would do, John, if it was taking charge of the cycling team, a parent was expecting the Tour de France outcome here.
Yeah. So you got known for winning,
Oh yeah. This is the winning guy. Hey,
but I don't see you like that. I see you but John, no, I don't. I see you as someone that helps the underdog.
I had to change my whole outcome. So I didn't realise if I was the guy, and this is really funny. I was asked. I said I'd like to get involved in Special Olympics, and somebody said, "Geez, that's fantastic. We could end up with a gold medal here."
That's 21, 23s, like.
We could end up with a gold medal here, and I'm going. Geez, no, all I want to do is just. Because of the new me or the reconditioned me or the redeveloped me, only wants to improve that person's life. And if we get a medal, that's fine. But hey, imagine you could bring a gold medal, a Special Olympics gold medal.
But hold on a minute, this is still about winning.
Yeah.
Because
this is the perception. Yeah. So community games, by the way, community games club of the year. 6 Munster finals in a row at 6 different disciplines.
Yeah.
Right? Not alone could he do Gaelic football, he could do soccer, rugby, blah blah blah, tennis, indoor soccer, outdoor soccer. So there was a whole idea that it brought. It was like, look, even Pride of Place in Kilmare, wonderful project where a community comes together. But at the end of the day, the environment that I wanted to bring, I asked to take charge of the sports section of it, and that. Hey, it was all about the winning and the achieving, and hey, look what we can achieve. And the judges said, hey, that's a fantastic project. The idea that all of you guys come together to create a better winning mentality
I can't help it but think I just love trying to win. I'd be competitive. I can't help myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, but I would be aware that I can fall easy off the horse. I totally know that.
Look, listen. Within 5 years...
But by God, I'll pull up a good fight, though.
Yeah, but we had created this whole environment that winning was everything again.
Well, it is everything when you're trying to win. I mean, I'm just saying, at the time, it is. Yeah. But to know, I think it's a sense of awareness.
We were also coming out of a recession, and the only way to earn, and I use it for earn, respectability in coming out of a depression was to winning meant everything again. Hey, you won the All-Ireland, you won.
Well, for me, I came out of the recession and I won. Even by coming out of it, like,
it was a win.
Do you know? Yeah.
And here's the thing. So
but
sport. This is important.
But how would you jump from the sport to helping? You help people that are really in trouble, man.
I picked up the phone one day to Dr. Liam Hennessy, and I said to Dr. Liam Hennessy, we're all got to go into. So as part of my degree, I was meant to expect to go into Cork or Kerry or Munster or whoever at that high sporting environment, semi-professional, professional, whatever you want to call it, right? I said, Liam, I'd love to go working in a school. And Liam said, that's a fantastic idea. I'm not interested in the elite side of the house. I want to see, if I was put into an environment, what participation input would we have? And based on my contact time there, what could we achieve? And he said, there isn't a school in the country that might want to do that. So I picked up the phone. I met Dennis Courtney, who was the principal of St. John's in Kilmare, and our relationship grew. I ended up spending 3.5 wonderful years inside her.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about wonderful because you had 419 students in the school of different ability, with different needs and a different purpose. Each one of them had a different purpose. But the idea that you could apply your knowledge to create an environment where they improve themselves. So it wasn't about. But
that's moving on from the sports part of it. I'm really interested, like, in how you mentioned the other day you were helping some guy some
young Joey. So young Joey walks in from the school.
You don't just do sports thing.
You do. So young Joey walks in from the car that morning, head down, and you say, Lassie died last night. I go, oh my God, Granda's dog. And Granda died last month. I'm going, jeez, God.
So you're feeling it, like.
Yeah. Hey. And this is a young boy affected by Granda's loss, but then the mourning for Lassie, who was Granda's favourite dog. And when Granda died, Lassie kicked the bucket. And jeez, which was sadder, Granda or Lassie? Because there was no longer a connect. And then you made sure, and I made it my purpose, that boy, over the next few days, you'd ask, how are you today, thing? And then Shep arrived. Mum and Dad bought a new pup. What's the pup's name? Shep. 2 weeks later, how are things going with Shep? I love him. He's the best dog we ever had. And Granda would be delighted we got a dog. And that was the healing process. And I realised, jeez,
you're starting to see what people call the bigger picture, like.
Yeah. And we're looking at. I'm probing. I'm asking the questions.
So what you see is you're helping people win in being authentic and being themselves. You win at life, just at life. Yeah. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So I stripped the idea of, to become a better athlete, you had to become a better person. To be honest with yourself. Now, John, the obvious question you haven't asked me, because I've asked you not to ask, what do I do now? Look, you know I'm the chairperson of the Kerry Schoolboys Girls League.
Yeah.
I was the secretary for 3 years before that, and 2 years before that I was the child welfare officer. My role as child welfare officer allowed me engage with all the clubs, and all the clubs. There's good people in all the clubs that I represent now at this stage.
Sure there is, yeah.
And they've realised, some of them were already there, more of them realised that we're not about, we all love to win. We all love to, but we also need participation. And within the participation, especially with a pandemic, we're actually exponentially after exploding with participation numbers, because indoor sports are closed down, so they're coming to find an outlet, and soccer. So we're training, we're creating an environment where a young person can come and for that half an hour can forget about their own issues and play in an environment that's safe. I'm aware of the time constraints here.
Yeah, it's fine.
If we need to have a conversation some other time about that whole situation.
I think so. I definitely...
But the purpose of you asking me to come in today was talking about the idea.
I think come back again and we talk about another. We'll talk about. But can I just finish on the point about there's just two things. You help people that are really in difficulty, and I just want to know what would your take on that be, and in a way, and what would you say to people just after talking about what you're talking about? What would the takeaways be for anybody?
Just for today. For today.
Yeah.
There's nobody. I believe nobody should be left at the side of the road. The difference between a kick in the arse and a pat in the back is only 6 inches. It costs nothing to say, how are you? I have seen firsthand what and how a positive moment in a person's life can change. And I'll say to any person who's listening out there today, the 1.5 million active listeners that you have, John, and 240 million listeners worldwide that are listening to every word I'm saying now.
Yeah.
The important thing is be prepared to make the sacrifice of saying, how are you?
Yeah.
3 words. It's not,
how are you doing?
And people say, but that's not a sacrifice. But a lot of people are afraid of the guy who's fallen in the street. How are you? The girl who's crying walking up in front of you. They're afraid to allow themselves be put out and say, how are you? Maybe that person had fallen. Maybe that person might have lost their purse. Maybe that person. You
don't know what's going on with people. You don't. And even how are you? Have a cup of tea. The cup of tea is a great thing, man.
Even before all that, if a person is down, we're not talking about changing the tyre in the car because that's all human nature. But in a shop, why is their child crying?
The Meitheal kind of spirit.
Let's go back to community.
Yeah,
I can't find mom. Okay. You tell the person who they are, I'm bringing you up to the counter where the lady or the man will announce over the speakers.
Yeah.
Where and tell mom where you can be found.
That's part of it too, isn't it? Like, yeah.
But please, I say to people, take an active role. Don't think that the next person behind you will deal with it.
Leave it to the next man. Yeah. We have a bit of that in our nation, like, do you know?
Yeah, we do. And we don't. It's because the fear of you within prevents you from taking an active.
So there's good in people, isn't there? Like it's just for people to overcome that.
I've yet to come across somebody who I've dismissed and said, Chris, forget about it because it's not worth it.
No, everybody has a place. Like
everybody,
at the potential, and you mentioned it. You believe in people's potential because you've already mentioned that. Like potential, give them a bit of time, they can change their life. They can turn it around.
The toughest thing for me and society in the Meitheal system, the community system, was the chance that we never had the ability to say goodbye to our neighbours. I've went to 6 or 7 funerals where the idea of shaking hands or hugging or talking to them about how that person who's just passed away has affected your life in a positive manner. And I've not had the ability on that moment to express my gratitude for that, knowing that person. And that is a very profound Irish thing. When Dad died, it took us 3 days to sing him into heaven, right? He was 74, a bit young, you'd say, but like he ended up with cranial cancer. But
you're reminding me of that. Do you remember the time the man was dancing on the counter in Killorglin to that song? His good friend died. Was it some pub in Killorglin? What's the name of it?
It's moments like that.
Yeah, again, like a real massive send-off.
My father, moved to Kenmare 16 years before he died, worked in Kenmare, had still great contact with West Cork. He got lonely when all of us moved to Kenmare. So in 1987, there was 5 in the house. By 1991, there was nobody in the house. And where's everybody gone? Oh, they've all gone off living their lives. Then he moved to Kenmare, built my sister Rosemary's house, then my house, then James, and then Mr. Hire in the Sheen Falls asked him would he build a few stone walls, and then he built Quills, the front of Quills shop in Kenmare in 1992, and then he became part of the community of Kenmare. There's a great photograph inside the Lansdowne Arms Hotel of himself and his 2 mates, Squire Riney and Hawley, the postman, right? They became an institution, and that table was only to be sat on by my father, Hawley, and
the committee.
The committee. And here's a guy who was accepted who spent from 1954 to 1973 in England, came back to West Cork, was part of West Cork community, but seemingly fitted into South Kerry environment in Kenmare. And when he passed away, we celebrated his life in Kenmare, back into Bantry and out to Doris, and then buried in Cora. It took us 3 days to sing him into heaven.
That's brilliant, man.
And I always feel that was part of my healing and accepting that Dad had moved on. And I see a lot of...
Do you think you'd want a legacy like that?
Yeah. But here's the thing.
It's something to live to, like.
It is, but the important thing as well is I feel for families whose mom or dad or granddad or son or daughter have passed away, and if they wanted to hear that one thing, it's not available to them now because social distancing. I remember just in a funny story, and it's a funny story, not funny, but a peculiar story. My father had an inherent idea that guys who fell down in life should go working for him. So if you were the young fella, age 19, who you didn't make college and your mom...
This is kind of ringing true. I was wondering, is there something in your life that connected the dots? This is connecting the dots to what you're doing.
Dad would say, oh, look, your man fell out of college. Jeez, come work with me for a couple of years.
But that's what you're doing. You're the 21s and 23 guys.
Yeah. And then, like 2 years later, that guy went back to college because working for my father was such a tough life, but so funny, tough. But also that environment, you're working as a labourer and mixing cement and all that. And he ended up getting first-class honours. And now he's a solicitor in South Africa or Australia. Yeah. And I remember when Dad died, a person wrote to Rosemary, my sister, and talked about he was crying that night when he'd heard that Dad had died. But then when he heard that it took 3 days to celebrate his life, that he wasn't part of that celebration, but it was important for him to write the letter to say that my father's influence in him had profoundly changed his outlook. You know,
that's what you're doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
you're following in the footsteps. I mean, that's great, and that's what you probably what you're saying to people is like, be positive. You can change your life.
Yeah, and at the same time, never be afraid to.
And you're going to be okay, by the way.
Yeah. So if failure, without failure, you can't move forward. So if you fail or perceive failing, that's not failing. It's just the learning outcome.
Yeah, it's just learning.
Yeah, and within that learning outcome, you've got to realise you cannot allow society judge you on something that isn't important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, conversations for other days might be.
Yeah, we'll get in. We'll probably we'll talk about another. It's been brilliant talking to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in. Really insightful.
We speak 12, 14, 16 times a year.
I know.
John, in a different capacity. How are you this morning?
How's it going? And you're in and out and you're flying like.
Yeah, and I could be back to you in 5 minutes. I'll be back to you in 20 minutes.
Because you're busy.
This is the longest I've ever sat down and talked to you.
I was wondering, he's supposed to be only here for 20 minutes or 25 minutes.
And you were wondering, John, like, will he actually...
Is he going to turn up? Yeah. I got the phone call. I'm between Minish and Glenflesk. I'll be there in 5 minutes.
Listen, I appreciate... that you afforded me the opportunity to tell
more than welcome,
a story that
great stuff.
That it's a story with a life experience. Look, I'm saying to everybody out there, just say hello, ask people, are they okay, and engage positive with people. It's a lot easier to stay positive than it is to act negative. And try, if any person who has an issue, they can always pick up the phone and talk to somebody. And if you can't, then pick up the phone and talk to us. You, John, look, everybody has your phone number. They all know where you are. And everybody knows me. They know who I am, what I do, and my telephone numbers, and loads of different platforms. Okay?
Yeah, it's like, and thanks for for helping people out and for being there for people. It's great. And you're an inspiration. I mean, and for people out there that are struggling, there is ways of getting help. And there just talk and you know.
I always say, look, on that darkest hour, just before you comes the dawn.
Yeah.
And no.
Hang in there. Hang in there.
Yeah.
Ask for help. Be there for someone else.
Absolutely.
At that note, Aidan, thanks very much.
Okay. And listen, if I don't talk to you pre-Christmas, look, have a good Christmas, have a good festive season, and I hope business is busy for you for the next 4 weeks.
Thank you.
I know we're locked down, but
lockdown.
It is what it is.
We'll get through it.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers. Enjoy Christmas.
Cheers. Nice one. Well, folks, that's it. Unfortunately, we've reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us and listening. And if you want to hear more from us, please subscribe to our podcast. And details on how to do that are on our Facebook page, Banter at the Counter, and soon on www.banteratthecounter.com. Also hit us up on Twitter and Instagram if you want to keep in touch. So until next time, mind yourselves, please stay safe and be positive.